right, this is Todd Atkins, and today I'm here with Shawn Clemmons, who actually is my first sponsor with Live2Fight banners and design. So today we're going to kind of talk about his background and kind of how he got into, MMA and fight sports, and also about his business and the banners. So maybe Shawn, first thing I'd like to ask you is kind of, when did you first find the sport of MMA?
Yeah, thank you for having me, Todd, by the way. So really, the first I can remember of UFC would be back in the 90s, the early 90s, mid 90s. I remember me and my brother would go to the video store and rent the Ultimate Fighting Championship back when it was kind of a free for all, Wild Wild West. So that's when I really kind of first saw it. But as far as really getting into it and kind of following it seriously as an adult was probably around 2005, 2006, when I started kind of watching it more regularly.
So you took a hiatus.
Yeah, I mean, and not for any particular reason, I guess. I actually did not watch the first Ultimate Fighter season with the infamous fight between Forrest and Stephan Bonner or whatever, but which I guess turned, obviously made it probably more mainstream for a lot of people. That wasn't what inspired me. I didn't even watch that, but it's kind of it falls around the same time though.
So why do you feel like you started to get more heavy into it in 2005?
I don't know if there's a particular reason. Now, I will say when I was younger, I used to watch boxing like a lot, like as far as more like Tyson mainly or Roy Jones a little bit. But I mean, I like combat sports. I've never participated in combat sports, but I do like MMA just for the fact of all the varied skills that these people have. It definitely is, I think, the toughest combat sport. And so I think, the fact that there could be wrestling, takedowns, jujitsu, knockouts, head kicks, whatever. I mean, any of that stuff makes it really exciting compared to just more of a either just all wrestling, all jujitsu, or all, kickboxing or boxing. But it's entertaining for sure.
Now, what made you decide, okay, I want to cross over and start doing something in this industry?
Yeah, that's a good question. So, I've always been a photographer, like to do photography, and I'm here in the middle of Iowa now, in Des Moines, Iowa. Prior to that, I was in a smaller town on the west side of Iowa, where there wasn't a big scene at the time, anyways. And I moved here in about 2011, and I realized that there's a lot more MMA action kind of going on as far as like local events and stuff. So I'm like, I just wanted to kind of reach out and photograph some of the fighters just because I enjoy doing that. So I started off by going to one of the local gyms and photographing some of the fighters during, sparring and practice. And then from there, I had a couple promoters reach out to me and they wanted me to actually photograph their events and then also do like some like pose shots, to help market and stuff like that for the posters. So it was kind of a perfect fit because I like to do photography. I like MMA. So it just kind of worked out.
Was Monty Cox one of those people?
Who is that?
Monty Cox? He's in your
I don't
area.
recognize that name.
You don't know him? Oh, God, man.
No.
Monty Cox is like a legend. Monty managed Pat Miletich, Jens Pulver, Tim
Oh,
Sylvia,
okay.
all
Yeah.
the guys from Miletich's gym. And
Okay.
he's doing some events again in the Iowa area.
Okay.
I know him well. I gotta put you on to him, man.
Well, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I know that's kind of the Quad Cities. That's like the eastern side of the
Mm-hmm.
state. Which I mean, I've been through there. I've never been to an event there, but they have a caged aggression MMA there,
Mm-hmm.
which I don't know if that's what Monty Cox is part of. But that's a huge promotion that they do. They do a lot, and I think Pat Miletich actually is one of the hosts or the commentators for that event.
Yeah. Monty Cox is one of the guys who was around the beginning. He was managing guys, but he also had his extreme fighting show that he
Okay.
was doing. So yeah, man, he was the biggest in Iowa back then.
Okay.
So
And
yeah,
I
we'll have to.
failed that one. I don't know that. Darn it.
Yeah. But so when did the opportunity arise? Like the first time, okay, now I've got this opportunity to cross over and do some of these banner
Yeah.
designs.
Yeah, so that was about 2015 is when I kind of started doing the photography. And then previously, like years ago, I used to be a graphic designer actually. So I just kind of took that opportunity. I thought, hey, a lot of these fighters, they do have banners, to promote their sponsors and stuff while they're in the cage. And so I thought, hey, that's kind of the best of both worlds as far as, I mean, I got the photography part of it, and then the graphic design part. And what worked out really well at the time was because most of these fighters didn't have professional photos, right? Like as far as pose shots with studio lighting and stuff that I did for them. So it made it really easy for me to take the photos that I took of them, throw it on a banner, add some graphics and make it look really nice. I mean, something that they probably never had before. So I just kind of turned that from just doing the photography part of it to, hey, got my first banner customer during, right before one of those fights. And then from there, it kind of took off. I started promoting it on like Instagram and Facebook actually first. And then from there, it kind of took off. And then I started having people actually from out of state reaching out to me, which, I love doing it for obviously, the Iowa fighters. But when you have somebody from like Pennsylvania, like Jamie Colleen, that doesn't know me from anybody, and they're trusting you with doing the work for them, that to me, that was when I felt like, man, this is kind of cool. I think I can actually do this and do it more on the regular and not just do it, every once in a while, but do it for fighters really across the country. So, right around 2015, 2016.
Now, how would you do it for someone who's not in your area? For someone like
So,
me who doesn't know the
yeah.
X's and
So,
O's of this?
yeah. So, I mean, as far as doing the graphic design, that's easy. I mean, I could do that for somebody in Australia. That's not a big
Right.
problem. As far as, everybody's different because some people, they want their photo on a banner, which, I do a lot of those. So obviously, if I haven't photographed them, we rely on photographers that they might have worked with.
Oh, okay.
And most photographers, like, I mean, have been really good. I've reached out several times, and I'll actually do a shout out to Jerry Chavez. He does a lot of the photography for LFA currently and some other organizations, like Shamrock FC and stuff, I believe. And he takes wonderful pictures. And so a lot of times with these different events, if I'm going to be doing a fighter and I know he's photographed him before, I'll say, hey, can you send me, a photo for this person? And he's more than happy to do that. I've also actually worked with or reached out, and I didn't work with, but I reached out to Mike Jackson before because he does a lot of photography at actual events. And I've had him photograph fighters that I work with, like while they're in the cage with their banner and stuff. So again, it's just a lot of kind of a community, tight knit community where if you reach out in good faith and just ask them, hey, can I do this or whatever, they're usually pretty accommodating, which is really nice.
Yeah, so you can kind of contract someone out to take the pictures and then you kind of
Yeah,
mix in
well,
the
I don't even
graphics.
contract out. I just say, hey, the fighters a lot of times will coordinate it, right? If they have photos, I'll say, hey, we'll get in touch with them, get a high resolution, version, because to be on a banner, it has to be high quality. It can't be a little JPEG that's on your social media generally, because it won't look very good printed at 6 foot by 4 foot. So I'll reach out and they'll provide me a high resolution, generally speaking. Sometimes it doesn't work out that way, and so then I have to use those lower resolutions. But I have some software I can enlarge it as best I can. And it still looks pretty good overall. But if I can get the high resolution, top quality, that's just going to make the banner pop out that much more. So, and then there's some fighters that don't even want their photo on there. So it's just more just their sponsor logos or maybe some colors or their name, of course. But so not every fighter has like their picture on it necessarily either.
Now, take me back to like the first one you did, and how long did it take for you to kind of say, okay, maybe this is something I'm going to do a lot of?
Yeah. So back when I did it, I believe the first one I ever did was a local kid. His name, by the name, I think it's Mason Roberts, and it turned out really nice. I mean, I was proud of it. He was excited about it, and from there, like when people saw it at the local fight, then I had other fighters locally that were reaching out. They wanted, so it didn't take any time at all, really. It
Mhm.
kind of, just took off. And so again, mostly I was doing banners locally. And then once I started getting some people from out of state reaching out, again, it's all word of mouth and a little bit of social media marketing that helped out doing that. Um, but yeah, it kind of took off rather quick. I mean, within a couple of years, I was, I had my hands full for a while there. And then I kind of took a hiatus for a while there as far as just because I had a couple kids and me and my wife, I couldn't be gone as much as I was at the gyms photographing fighters or doing different things. So I kind of took a little bit of a hiatus and just did them sparingly. But this last maybe 6 months to a year, I really picked up again and started doing it on a more steady basis again. So, which I'm excited to do.
So, is this all you do, or were you working as well?
Oh no, I have a day job, a 9 to 5, so to speak. So I've been at my current employer for over 7 years, and so really, Live to Fight is my passion more than anything, right? It's a passion that I get paid to do. So it's not that I'm not just, donating my time, but I'm not, it's not something that if I don't get a banner or something like that, I'm going to starve and be out on the streets. So it's just something, again, I do it because I love to be part of the MMA community. Like I said, I'm not a fighter, never have been. So this is my way to kind of connect in a way without getting punched in the face.
But I mean, when you took on all those projects, is it overwhelming because you have a regular job too?
Yeah, it can be. And I would say most of the time I know well enough ahead of time to where I can schedule it all out, take my time to do it, get it done, get it sent to my printer, get it shipped to the fighter well before their event happens. But there have been times where I get these last minute, orders where, I mean, we're really pushing it again, if they're out of state and I have to get it sent to my printer, have to have it shipped directly to them. They have to be there to receive it. And then they usually have to get out of town to go wherever they're going to be fighting at. There's been some stressful times for sure. Or if I've had multiple projects at the same, pretty much parallel with each other, that can make it a little bit more stressful. So, but generally speaking, I mean, people that work with me know to plan it out ahead of time, even if they at least have me start ahead of time. And then it maybe at the last minute, we're wrapping up some last minute sponsors for them. That way I'm not trying to create the whole thing in a day, for example. So, because it doesn't, it usually can take a few hours with, working with the logos they provide. Again, a lot of times the logos that I receive aren't really print ready. So I have to kind of do a lot of touch up and fixing up. I do have some fighters that they have, you can tell they've done it many times before, and they'll have all the right kind of files to where I literally just slap it on and makes it really easy, and I can turn those around a lot quicker.
So what's like maybe one of the biggest fighters you've worked with, you think?
There's a few fighters that I'm really proud of. So I've done some banners for people that are currently in the UFC. Obviously, they weren't in the UFC when I did their banners because when I got into the game, UFC's and banners in the UFC wasn't a thing anymore. So, which I wish I could have, would have started sooner. It would have been nice to have, even if I had one in there. But I would say Rafion Stotts, Bellator. I think he's the interim champion or the champion at bantamweight right now. Vanessa Demopoulos in the UFC, Miranda Maverick in the UFC. Helen Peralta I've worked with, doing some stuff with. I mean, she's been bare knuckle, and then Invicta and a lot of other promotions. So it's been great to work with her. I've actually had her do some promo videos with me and stuff like that over the years, so that's really nice. And then Adam Borix in the Bellator, he fought. His last fight was against Patricky, and he didn't come out the victor in that, and I think he had to have surgery afterwards. He had something with some kind of leg injury or whatever. But so those are some of the bigger names that I've done stuff for. Even Emmanuel Sanchez, he's part of Bellator as well. And so, a lot of those guys from Rufus Sport.
Oh, are they close to you in proximity? Huh? They're in like
well, they're not. I mean, they're like 6 hours away, and I've never been there, but just Rafion, it was there, Emmanuel was there. So again, it was one of those things. It's like a word of mouth, and like, oh yeah, hey, my other fighter's doing it, so it just helps me. It makes it easier for me to get Rafion to do one if he knows Emmanuel did one and it turned out well, and it wasn't was easy to do. So it always kind of spreads once I kind of reach a certain clientele, and then they spread with their their training partners and their gym. Makes it a lot easier as far as to get them to trust somebody again that they may have never met before.
So you're trying to get to like Pettis FC or?
Oh, I would love it. Yeah. Yep. I would love to do that. I mean, I'm really open. Obviously, there are so many great organizations out there other than the UFC that, for one, allow banners and do banners. LFA has been a huge one for me. Invicta, I've done some, for Invicta fighters too. So, obviously, I have no problem working with whoever wants to work. I would love it if I could actually work with those promotions and do something. If I could ever get a partnership there, I mean, that would be great. I mean, it hasn't happened yet. Don't know if it ever would, but I would definitely be more than happy to accept the challenge.
I know two people that work for Pettis FC.
Okay.
We'll talk about this offline.
Oh,
But
definitely.
like
Absolutely.
the MMA detective who
Yeah.
He works for Pettis
Okay.
FC, and also Michael Hansen. He's the announcer. He's been on my
Okay.
show. He's the only announcer I have on my show, so it's kind of a
Oh,
gimmick, but yeah, he's a cool guy, so I just do it with him. But he got hired to do Pettis FC, so
okay.
yeah,
Yeah, that's great. And then I know, I think speaking of Pettis, I mean, he's boxing Roy Jones Jr. here pretty soon, I
yeah,
believe,
yeah,
right?
yeah. That should be interesting.
Yeah, and that's on Jorge Masvidal's Game Bread Boxing, right? I think
Mhm.
he's got a lot of good fights. Jose Aldo, I think, is on that, so that should be a good time.
And Pitbull's cutting down to fight his brother.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Patricio.
Oh, yeah, yes, that's right. Yes, yep, yeah. He's fighting Sergio, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So yeah, so you can do a lot of work at Bellator, huh? Things other than the UFC, it's still pretty easy to pull off.
Yeah. Yep. Yep. And the thing is, a lot of these, like the bigger organizations like Bellator, LFA, Invicta, they have certain guidelines too for the banners. They want to have, their logo on there, of course, promoting their brand as well. So my real, what I really, again, this is my passion and what I really try to offer for fighters, because again, they could go to the local, sign shop and have somebody do a banner if they really wanted to. But really, I think, the fact that I specialize really in fighter and gym banners, work, for their gyms, but I also work with the organizations to make sure that it meets their standards, because, it doesn't do any good to have a banner made up if you can't use it because you didn't follow the guidelines. And so, I take pride in that and in making sure that it meets their requirements, and then making sure that it's going to look good when it's standing there, right behind them on the cage as they're getting their fighter introduction. So, um, definitely I like to work with fighters of all levels. I mean, yeah, we mentioned some of the bigger fighters that I've done stuff for. But I also will do it for, the unknown person, the person that maybe it's their first fight, second fight, whatever, in whatever organization. I mean, I really want to provide really quality, creative banners for fighters of any level at an affordable price.
And I take it probably if you make one, the guy wants to use it more than once, probably, right?
In a lot of cases it can be that way, and then there's other cases, right? So I mentioned earlier, I've worked with Jamie Colleen for about the last 8 years, and she's fought for several different organizations, and she has a huge sponsor following, and always has a lot of sponsorships. And so basically for every fight she has, I'm making a new banner because her sponsors have changed. She likes to keep it fresh and keep it creative too, so, and she's very open to kind of my vision on it. So, you know, I I think I've done maybe around 8 banners for her over the past 8 years. So, but yeah, there are some fighters that they have one, their sponsors don't change too much, so they might use it multiple times. They're definitely durable enough. I mean, you could use them for years, honestly. And they're actually weatherproof, so you could, I mean, if you're outdoors, if they get wet, it's not going to ruin them. But yeah, a lot of fighters are, they're probably getting a different banner for most fights if they're fighting a couple times a year or once a year.
But they're not small. I mean, if you have 8 of them, you got to stash them somewhere.
Yeah, but they roll up. I mean, they're made out of vinyl, so it's easy to roll up. And what I know a lot of fighters do, which to me is really cool, and I see it more locally here, of course, when I visit the gyms, is a lot of these fighters, the gyms that they go to, they'll have them up on the wall. So like,
Hmm.
it'd be banners that I've done, banners that maybe somebody else has done of all the different fighters that are training there. So it's really neat to go into those places and see the work you've done. Even like I said, some of the local gyms, when I've done banners for them, and to see that on the wall at those gyms, it's just, it makes you feel good when you get to see that kind of stuff. Um, to know that somebody's appreciating your artwork.
In the banner world of MMA, how many people you think are out there besides you?
Well, I have a hard time when I Google and stuff like that. I have a hard time finding anybody that really specializes in fighter banners. There
Mhm.
used to be one, and I can't remember the name of them, and this was a few years back, that they did a lot of great ones, and they actually did a lot for people that were in the UFC because they had started obviously prior to UFC not allowing banners anymore. And they did a lot of great ones, but they've since, I think, don't do it any longer, and I can't remember the name of them. But when I try to Google them, you don't really find a lot. I mean, you find tons of, like, signs by tomorrow, Signorama, whatever. But again, I'm not saying that they can't do good work, but I mean, they're doing the kid's birthday party banner, they're doing the baseball team banner, they're doing banners for a business. Where again, mine, I really just stick with combat sports and combat, in training gyms, basically.
Yeah, so you're like the only one who's really entrenched, do you think?
Yeah, I mean,
Probably.
again, I'm sure there's people out there, but I have a hard time, finding them. Um, but I think there is somebody that that Dave Fretz or whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
I know he works at least with some fighters. I don't know how often he's doing it, but he has done some for, he has like certain people that I think that he sponsors, maybe, that he's done it for. But yeah, I haven't found any full-fledged, hey, we do banners for fighters besides myself. And if
Yeah,
I did, I
Dave
would
told
tell
me
you.
that this stuff took over his life pretty fast, his
Yeah.
work.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. You're talking about Dave?
Yeah, he said it didn't take long for him to just get so much work that he had to just do that.
Yeah. Well, definitely. I mean, I've seen his work as far as a lot of the graphics, that stuff that he does, and he does amazing work. So when you're that good, you can definitely, build a business off a career off of it. Um, I don't know if that would ever be the case for me. I mean, I have a pretty good job outside of doing that. And I'm thinking long term as far as retirement and stuff like that.
Yes.
But I definitely wouldn't be, I wouldn't be opposed to having a lot of work to where I feel like, oh my God, like I could almost just do this. Um, but I don't see myself, leaving my other job. But again, I'm always welcome to the challenge, and I'm always enjoying, partnering up with new fighters. So
Yeah, I think, that's the good way to do it, to have the stable job and then
yeah, yeah, oh yeah. I mean, again, health insurance ain't cheap, and then retirement, just having a retirement, stuff like that, you know, you can't take those things for granted. And I definitely, like I said, I love what I do with Live2Fight design, and I'll do it as long as I can, as long as people want me to do it. But again, I don't, what I like about it is that fact that I don't depend on it to live either, to eat. If I was worried about that all the time, then it would really get a little stressful, I think. If you're like, oh man, I haven't, did so many this month, wonder what I'm going to feed my kids, like, so I don't have to worry about that. I just do it, truly out of passion. So
but you can get a solid chunk out of this, right?
oh yeah, oh yeah. I
Yeah,
mean,
I mean,
again, I'm
yeah.
not doing it for free, and I'm not just, donate my time or whatever you want to say, pro bono. I do it because I do want to make money for for my time. I mean, years and years ago, when I was, starting out as a graphic designer, I would do a lot of like pro bono stuff, like for, say like, musicians or artists or whatever, just because it's like, oh, this is cool and whatever, and you want to do it. And that's kind of the easy way to get in, because they're always starving artists as well. And so like, they love it when somebody wants to do it for them. But that ship has sailed a long time ago. I have 2 kids and a wife. Uh, that wouldn't be very good if I'm taking time away from my family just for the fact that, oh, I like doing it. I mean, that would be just a hobby if that was the case.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty awesome that you have, this thing that you can make some good stuff off of.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, like I said, I really do enjoy it. And um, you know, it's something that what I like about it is the fact that I can do it really from my house. I mean, I can go out to, the local areas, but it's not like I'm going out to Florida or Texas or somewhere to do these things. I get to do it at the comfort of my house, but I get to work with fighters from all over the country. And so that's to me kind of making those acquaintances, and a little bit of partnerships, or even a little bit of friendships with some of those fighters that I've done it repeatedly for, makes it worthwhile.
Now, Shawn, I want you to kind of, as we're closing this, let's say I'm a fighter, I want to get something from you. How do I go about it?
Yeah, I would say the easiest way would really probably hit me up on Instagram. And you can see that, I think, where right over here, Live2Fight Design on Instagram. It's also the same on Twitter, although I'm rarely on Twitter. But if you find me on there, some people are big Twitter people. But Instagram seems to be my main one, or even Facebook. I do have a website. It's live2fightdesign.com. That's kind of there. If you go there, there is some stuff there, but it's still a work in progress. So really, I just encourage people to hit me up on Instagram, and then we can take it from there.
And how long do you prefer, like if someone were to order, How early? How ahead of time?
I would say at least two, business weeks prior to what, either when they're going to be leaving, if they're going out of town themselves, or 2 weeks prior to the fight night. If it can be sooner than that, that's even better. That's not usually the case. A lot of times it's 2 weeks gives me plenty of time to get the design just right, get it approved by the fighter, send it to my printer, and then get it wrapped up and then get it shipped out to them and delivered right to their door. And again, I like to do it if I can, so they have it at least a few days before they have to worry about going out of town or going to their fight. Just so,
2 weeks is nothing.
no, it's pretty good turnaround overall. I mean, I said
Yeah.
I pride myself in doing the quick work, but the biggest part is I have to have everything from the fighter in order to complete my job. So if they're missing banners or photographs or whatever, obviously that makes it a little bit harder. So that's where you can kind of cut into that time depending on how long it takes to get that. But generally speaking, most fighters I've worked with have been really good about it. And I always stress the whole time thing and needing these things. Maybe sometimes to a point of like where they feel like I'm bugging them, but it's just because I want to make sure that they get it, because they have enough things to worry about, really, right? I mean, they're worrying about, nutrition, weight cutting, kind of, finish up sparring and whatnot. Again, I try to be the easy button for them, so to speak, when it comes to the banner, to where they don't have to really think about it. Sure, they have to send me stuff, or the coach has to send me stuff. But I really kind of try to make it as easy as possible so they can actually focus on the things that matter before they get into that cage.
Well, Shawn, I want to thank you for taking time to do this, and obviously I appreciate you reaching out and wanting to sponsor my show and help me out. So
Absolutely.
anybody that watches my stuff, watch the MMA Conspiracy Hour, any of this stuff I do, this is Live2Fight Design, Shawn Clemmons, and he's the first guy to reach out to support me. So please support him. And
I appreciate you having me on here, Todd. It's been great.
And for everybody who watches this episode, I appreciate your support. And until next time, take care.
All right, catch you later.